Critical thinking, the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. All right, I've got my notes on here. So if I go a little deeper into what critical thinking is, critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief and action. Okay, so what that means in a nutshell is critical thinking is a very essential cog in our system in terms of our existence as human beings, particularly as adults navigating through life on a daily basis. Now, us as Africans, if you see me looking this way, I've got my notes, got my laptop here. Now, I'm of the opinion, and I would like you to please, tell me what you think, okay? This is an interactive session for me. Join the conversation below if you're watching this on YouTube. By the way, if you like what I'm about, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If this is your first time bumping into this, my name is Phrankleen. I'm the brain behind this platform. And the premise of this is to basically bring up the what some might regard as inconvenient topics, pretty much eclectic topics that affect hopefully multi-facets of our lives as humans, particularly as black folks, if that makes sense. So I'm of the opinion that Africans are deliberately deprived of critical thinking, and a lot of us get exposed, or these parts of our life, the lack of critical thinking in most of us get exposed when we travel to the West. Now, let me put a disclaimer. This is not to suggest that, we're a bunch of silly people, or we're incapable of, top-level intellectual prowess, or we lack the ability to decipher, maybe complex subjects or things like that, or function effectively in the wider context of the society. But I would tell you in few moments what lack of critical thinking is doing to us as a people. This is not a nationality, specific, but for me personally, this is my observation. Now, watch this. Before I go into my subject, here is something. The issue of critical thinking starts with the culture in our homes, in our society back home. Now, children usually are not allowed to question parents or their elders, ask questions about their decisions or some of their choices. So the society has mentally conditioned you from when you're tiny to say, because you're a child, because such and such is older than you, you basically cannot or must not question their judgment, even when they are blatantly wrong, even when they blatantly made a terrible mistake or a terrible decision that will evidently have an adverse effect on your person as a child. You're not allowed, okay? Wives can't question husbands, must not question husband. That's deeply rooted in patriarchy, all right? So there is that, that is like a stigma, they must remain diminished. You must not ask questions, keep your head down. You must be kitchen bound. So that way you are expected to remain as a conformist, do as you're told. Okay. That in itself is another type of damage that, that inflicts itself upon the wider black community. Now, workers can't question and correct their supervisors or bosses. You can't question preachers, priests, traditional practices, and the list goes on. You're not supposed to question, just obey, just bow down, just do as you're told, just conform. Even though things are not working and the negative effects are all around you, that's why it's easy for us to be taken over right under our noses in our own countries across Africa. You see, what I said earlier, right? Most of us within the black community. So you decide to migrate to, say, you come to the UK and stuff. Now, I'll tell you the importance of critical thinking. Now, right through your formative years, so if you look at the white folks here in the West, okay, that's not to say I'm in full alliance with everything about them, but they encourage critical thinking. In fact, it forms a major part of their existence. What do I mean? You see young children within the schooling system here in the West, they're allowed to express themselves. It's like it's a major part of the society we live in, regardless of the nature of a child. A child by nature might be shy or something like that, but they're allowed to ask questions. There are basically, in fact, the curriculum puts them into a process where critical thinking is applied on a daily basis within the schooling system. They ask questions, they look at things, they ask questions, they challenge you, and then you as a teacher or as a lecturer, then you get into a process where they engage your thought process. You then have to, they challenge you intellectually is what I'm getting at, right? But where we come from within the black community, there is this very toxic culture of if a child says, "Dad, why do we have to bless our food before eating? If I'm hungry and mom's just put a plate of food on the table, right? Why do I have to pray on the food?" Or I'm just talking hypothetically now. That's just an example. Why do we have to do such and such? Most of the time, they immediately shut you up and say, shut up, be quiet, do as you're told and stuff. And what these things do, especially through the formative years of the children, is it diminishes their confidence. It sabotages them mentally because basically everybody around you tells you that you're being disrespectful. They tell you that it's rude to ask questions. And like I said earlier, even when these so-called elders are blatantly wrong, or they don't even have the right responses or answers to deal with the question at hand. But just because they're older, you must conform. What this does, it ensures that a bunch of black folks are mentally decapitated, mentally repressed. It means mentally you're not fully formed, because you really are not attuned to how the wider society or the world around you really works. So when you travel to the West, you're quickly exposed with a massive cultural difference, because you meet your counterparts and then you soon realize, maybe you find yourself in a lecture room and then they've lived through their formative years. Critical thinking is part of their lives. I've heard some international students, for example, from Africa, they see their white peers in class and say, "Oh, excuse me, sir," they challenge a lecturer. Of course, this is not being verbally disrespectful or anything like that, but they stop them in their tracks and they challenge their thought process. They ask questions, they dig deep, they go deeper, and then you see the lecturer might leave the slides for a moment and then come closer and then sit on the edge of the table, and then they go toe to toe with a student, and everyone learns in the process. And then even sometimes the lecturer themselves might have to go back to their drawing board and have to go learn more. And this is how a society actually evolve, okay? They don't shut you down because you're a kid. In fact, if a child is able to displace an adult in terms of, mental prowess and critical display of critical thinking, the society here in the West applauds them. They sometimes even, they reward them, they celebrate them. They provide a further avenue for them to grow. And you realize that you take that ability into whatever niche, whatever industry you then decide to go into. Now, like I said earlier, we live in a society where religiosity is a major weapon that black folks that's used against black folks within our community to silence and chain us. It doesn't matter if you have a master's degree, an undergraduate degree, a PhD, in a society where religiosity is heavily weaponized to keep you down. So you're not allowed to ask questions. As soon as maybe a woman is not happy about the way she's been treated by her husband, the pastor shows up and says, nope, do as you're told. Because such and such book says XYZ, you must conform, you must conform, you must conform. And if you dare speak against it, even when in worst case scenarios where women, for example, it's evident that a particular woman is a victim of ongoing cycle of domestic abuse, they apply religiosity to hold the woman down to say, oh, because such and such book says you're not allowed to divorce, even when their safety is basically in danger. They ask them to remain. And then in the worst case scenario, people slip into depression or they end up dead. So critical thinking, if you look at it in the wider context, I'm of the opinion that we are being robbed on a daily basis. And it also ensures that the best of the best within the African community, the people with the best minds, the best brains, it ensures that you do not get to 100% level of what your brain is able to handle, what you can do with your mind, because a bunch of repressed people cannot function at a top level. A bunch of mentally chained people cannot compete on a global platform. A bunch of mentally repressed people cannot compete on a global platform and be productive at that top level, that they can then contribute 100% or positively to their own society and make sure that it keeps such cycle going. That's why a lot of us, particularly those of us who have grown up to become adults in Africa, and we completely lack this critical thinking in our systems. We find it very difficult to integrate successfully in the West. We find it absolutely mentally challenging, because when you then basically start looking from your left to your right, you cannot cope. Your brain is steaming, is on fire, because you have been destabilized right from your childhood. What do you think? Let's keep the conversation going on below. It's your boy, Phrankleen. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. What do you think about critical thinking? What can we do about this as black folks? It's your boy, Phrankleen, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace and love, man. Bye-bye.